throughout this NBA season, the way the Eastern Conference is going has been definitely very interesting. It's definitely looking like the stronger of the two conferences right now. It's very competitive near the top of the Eastern Conference standings, and really since before the season started up until this point into the season, the debate for who is the best team in the East has been really interesting. The Nets, Bucks, and Heat have always been in the conversation. The Sixers have definitely been thrown in there recently as well. But one team that I think is the best team in the Eastern Conference is the Chicago Bulls. They've really surprised everyone by being near that one seed, if not in that one seed this whole year in the Eastern Conference. And today I'm going to be discussing 5 main reasons why I think this team is actually the best team in the Eastern Conference, and if they can stay healthy, I think they're going to make it to the NBA Finals this season. So I'm going to be discussing why I think they're the best in the East in this video, giving you guys 5 reasons. But before we start, it turns out that in the last month, only just over 10% of you guys watching my videos are subscribed. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and let's get on that road to 1,000 subscribers. With that being said, let's get into the analysis. The first thing I want to talk about the Bulls is how their offense flows so well. They have so many options when they run their plays, and their last resorts on offense are actually such good resorts as well. Like when guys like Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan are doing their thing, operating in the mid-range area and creating their own shot, a lot of possessions, this is kind of the last resort for this Bulls team, and these are still really high percentage shots for the team, which really shows you just how dominant their overall offense is. The stats back it up as well, and when you watch this team play, it's just really nice to see how well their offense flows. They have many good playmakers on this team that make the right pass at the right time, make great plays in transition especially as well, like Lonzo Ball and especially Ayo Dosunmu, who has really broken out recently and showed his promise as a good young overall player. Both of these guys are very good facilitators, playmakers, passers. They've done a great job of that. Alex Caruso has been a pretty good playmaker as well. And then the scorers and shooters on this team, the pure scorers like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, who have both averaged over 25 points per game this season on good efficiency, great mid-range scores, pretty good playmakers as well. Nikola Vucevic, his ability to pop out to the top of the key for 3 and be kind of the best big man shooter in the league at that spot, just really consistently knocking down that shot from the top of the key. That's another great option for them. And overall, when you watch this team run plays, their ability to get open off ball, have good screeners, good offensive flow overall, and create open shots in many different ways, even on just one particular play, it's really great to see. And for being a relatively new team with kind of new guys and new culture, this team has amazing chemistry, one of the best well put together teams on the offensive side of the floor in the league, and overall their offensive flow as a set offense has just been insane, and it's really going to come in handy in the playoffs. This chemistry that they have, the skilled scorers and playmakers that they have in this offense, and their overall offensive system. This season, the Bulls have currently the 4th best offensive rating in the NBA, the 7th best assist to turnover ratio in the NBA, and the 2nd best true shooting in the NBA, which is, for those of you who don't know, a stat that kind of measures your overall efficiency with a formula that gives a pretty accurate number. So overall, the Bulls offense has just looked very good together, and they really have nowhere to go but up. And in the playoffs, I think this is probably going to be one of, if not the best offenses in the NBA. The second reason I think the Bulls are the best team in the East is how good their transition game is, and they don't even get out in transition that much as probably they should. I think they should try to push the pace a little bit more because of just how good they are in transition, but I mean, probably the reason they don't is because of how dominant their set offense is as well. But overall, this team just does a fantastic job of pushing the pace. A guy like Lonzo Ball and the other really good passers and pace pushers on this team have done a really good job of getting them open shots in transition, and especially in the playoffs, your ability to capitalize on these opportunities in transition is really crucial because these are the easiest opportunities you're going to get to score in a game, and the Bulls know that, and they capitalize on these opportunities very much and very frequently. They always try to get to the rim in transition, and if they don't, they get a lot of wide open shots from three, which they do a great job of knocking down effectively as well. And overall, the Bulls rank number 1 in all of these stats in transitions, number 1 in points per possession in transition, number 1 in field goal percentage in transition, and literally the 100th percentile in the NBA, according to NBA.com, in transition. So again, I think they should try to get out a little bit more. They're around middle of the pack on frequency in getting out in transition, but again, it's probably because their set offense is just so good, and really the combination of their dominant set offense and their really good transition game is going to help them in the playoffs and allow them to dominate even some of the best defenses in the NBA. Another reason why I think the Bulls are going to end up showing they're the best team in the East is how good they are as a team in clutch time when it matters most, and this is something that's really going to come into play when it comes time for the playoffs. Obviously, you have to have those clutch players on your team who are just straight up stars and can go get you a bucket on their own down the stretch in games when you need it the most. DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine have been two of, if not literally maybe the two best players in the NBA this season in clutch time statistically, and overall as a team, the Bulls actually have the third best offensive rating in the entire league in what NBA.com considers clutch time. And I know a lot of you might think that this might not carry over to the playoffs, but I think this is the year, first of all, for DeMar DeRozan to finally get over that hump and start performing well in the playoffs, and not only in the playoffs but in the clutch times in the playoffs. He's shown that he can do it in the regular season. While he hasn't been a good playoff performer in his career, I think this is the time in his career where he's going to turn that corner. That mid-range shot of his and his overall jump shot has been so dominant this year that I don't really see it going away when it comes time for the playoffs. And when it comes to Zach LaVine, he's been so clutch this year as well, and he hasn't actually played in the playoffs in his career, but I think I would agree with a lot of you guys when I say that Zach LaVine is just one of those players that he's going to do well in the playoffs. You can just tell he's that kind of player that lives in the moment and is going to really thrive in those big moments in the playoffs. And not only just these two players, but really just this team overall does a great job in clutch time down the stretch in games, and the stats back this up for sure. So I think especially with DeMar and LaVine, this is going to be a really key factor for them. I think they're going to be really good in the clutch time down the stretch in playoff games, which is really the biggest part of the NBA playoffs. And you already know that probably some of the series, or a couple of the series that they're going to be playing, and are literally just going to come down to this: a game 6 or game 7, really close game in the fourth quarter. And the fact that this Bulls team is going to thrive in those big moments is really going to benefit them and help them push towards potentially making the NBA Finals this year. Now, for my fourth reason here, something that you guys are probably thinking is that the Bulls aren't good enough defensively to be the number 1 team in the East over a team like the Heat or the Bucks, but something that they do have is two of the better one-on-one defensive stoppers in the NBA. And while their team defense hasn't been exactly great this season, it wasn't really expected to be good, especially going into this season. And if anything, they've actually overperformed the expectations defensively slightly, but they do have the 19th best defensive rating in the NBA, slightly under average this year, but they do have two guys on Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso who are two of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. Both of these guys have great hands. They do a great job of just being scrappy, getting into defenders, being versatile defenders, being able to defend 1 through 4 despite their shorter size compared to some of these guys. And I think this is probably the biggest key to defenses in the playoffs, especially, like I mentioned, especially down the stretch. You're going to see a lot more of kind of one-on-one play, and while coaches don't necessarily like to see that, it's just the reality of the playoffs. Down the stretch in games, you're going to see a lot of this, and Lonzo and Caruso are, like I said, two very good on-ball defensive stoppers that are going to play a very key part in this Bulls defense and potentially allow them to succeed a little bit more defensively in the playoffs than they would in the regular season. I really think this is a team that could thrive defensively in the playoffs compared compared to what they're doing in the regular season. Not to mention that their team chemistry defensively is getting better and better as the season is going on, and you can see how this Bulls team could potentially have some good strategies of guarding some of the bigger guys on this teams that Lonzo and Caruso can't guard, or on other teams, guys like Giannis and Kevin Durant that they might be facing in the playoffs this year down the stretch. These are guys that really no teams know how to guard, but I think the Bulls could do a decent job of containing them with their defensive strategies, and not to mention a guy like Nikola Vucevic has really improved as a defender this season as well. His interior defense and pick and roll defense has been much better. He uses his hands well at the rim. He's a decent rim protector, and I think he's going to come into play a little bit more defensively as he continues to improve throughout this year as well. So while this Bulls defense is definitely not elite so far this regular season, I think it will be pretty good and definitely above average in the playoffs this year, maybe even a top 5 defense in the playoffs as they become more used to playing with each other, build some team chemistry defensively, and still have those dominant on-ball stoppers like Caruso and Lonzo Ball playing for them and thriving in the playoffs. I think this defense could be good, and then the elite offense that this team has that I've talked about throughout this video will make up for whatever they don't bring defensively, and I think the combination of this team on both sides of the floor will allow them to be the best team in the Eastern Conference in the playoffs. And then lastly, one thing I wanted to mention briefly here is the Chicago Bulls are one of, if not the best shooting teams in the NBA as well. And what I mean by that is not just three-point shooting, but in the mid-range area, they operate here better than almost anyone in the entire NBA. And it's self-explanatory with guys like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, who literally just live in the mid-range area and completely dominate there, especially DeMar. He's been known for his mid-range shot throughout his whole career. He's DeMidRange DeRozan. He's been insane this year in there. That shot's really working out well for him. Same thing with Zach LaVine, and even a guy like Lonzo, sometimes even Nikola Vucevic. If he's not shooting that three-point shot, he can do well in the mid-range area. And overall, they're second in the entire league, only behind the Nets in mid-range percentage, shooting 45% from that area. When you can knock down that shot at that kind of rate, it really allows your team to function well, because in today's NBA, this is considered a bad shot, but when you're able to make this a good shot and a high percentage shot for your team, that obviously allows you to be really good as an offense, because now you don't necessarily have really a gaping weakness where a lot of teams have kind of that mid-range shot as a really obvious weakness of their team. The Bulls don't, and they're actually doing this on the highest volume in the league by far as well, shooting almost 19 field goal attempts per game in the mid-range area. And we know that this team too does not shoot a lot of threes. They're literally the only team in the NBA not shooting over 30 3-point attempts per game. They're not known as a 3-point shooting team, yet they are still second in the entire league in 3-point percentage, shooting 37.5% from 3 so far this season. And if they can even shoot a little bit more threes, especially when they're getting out in transition, if they can spread some of those shots out to the 3-point line, get some wide open looks from there, and when they're running their set offense and they can get some open shots from 3 there and start taking a little bit more of those, this will allow this team to function even better offensively when they're getting 3 points instead of 2. So I think they should take some more shots from 3 because of how consistently they can knock them down. And the reason this 3-point percentage is so high too is because this team, like I've talked about multiple times throughout this video, does a great job of getting open shots. So overall, not only do they have a great offensive flow as a team, but the shooters on this team do a really good job of knocking down those shots, especially in the mid-range area, and they're doing it from 3 as well. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the Chicago Bulls and 5 reasons why I think they're going to come out of the Eastern Conference this season. Like I said, if they can stay relatively healthy throughout the playoffs, I think they will be representing the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals this year. As a Raptors fan, I'm definitely rooting for this team. I want to see DeMar DeRozan make it to the finals and potentially get a ring this season. It would be really awesome to see that. And because of everything I discussed in today's video and how the Bulls are the closest thing you're going to get in the Eastern Conference, at least to a flawless team, I really do think they are the best team in the Eastern Conference. And like I said, I think they will be in the NBA Finals this year, representing the East and showing that even though they're a new team, they were able to click together right away and show how amazing of a team they really are. So thank you all for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and be sure to comment down below your thoughts on today's video and who you think is going to make the finals out of the Eastern Conference and your thoughts on the Chicago Bulls, and I'll see you all next video.